Hello and welcome to a new video series where I sit down with some of Singapore's top watch collectors to talk about their journey as well as some of their favorite watches in their collection. Today I'm sitting down with Ken, who is a good friend and the founder of strap company Delugs. He talks about how he went from a Seiko Presage to his incredible and tasteful collection of independent watchmaking and high horology. Sit back, grab a coffee, and enjoy. So first of all, super happy to finally have you on. I think it's been a while in the making.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. I can't believe it's been almost 3 years since we've met, and
5 years for Delugs.
5 years for Delugs. Almost 3 years for. Yeah, I've known you for half of Delugs, like more than half of Delugs.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think.
It's quite cool.
Okay, anyways, but onto the watches, I suppose. Of course, I think as a first starter, the very boring question of how exactly did you get started with watches? Or, did the watches come first or did the straps come first?
Both came at the same time. A few months. Both came within a few months. I started crafting in 2016. But that was before I got into watches. But I was crafting like general leather products. Then shortly after that, I got into watches. I got my first mechanical watch in, I think, August 2017.
What was that?
Seiko Presage.
Okay.
The Starlight, yeah. Blue dial, like ice shard dial. So that was I like the texture. So got that. I was making straps at the time for other people, making wallets. Both came in quite closely. I didn't really get into watches just because of the strap thing. I was just trying to. It was like men's fashion, right? You get into boots. I was into shoes and boots at one point. Dressing, but then watches was quite a natural progression, I think.
Awesome. Then I think I still see you post a lot of like Grand Seikos and stuff nowadays. Mm-hmm. But how would you say like the journey went from there? Because obviously looking at the watches that you have brought with you today, yeah, it's like not exactly Seiko level anymore. So yeah.
So it started with the Seiko, and then because the business came in, I was starting to look at watches that were more. Most people knew, like hype watches in a sense, but hype watches not in the independent space, right? Hype watches more in like what people liked. Omega Speedmaster, there was like the number one watch that I knew that worked well on a lot of straps. At the time already people were saying, oh, Speedmaster works well on every strap. So that one was one of the first few watches I got. Then Grand Seiko Snowflake. Again, another one that works well on straps. 20mm lug width, that always helps. Tudor Black Bay 58, I think it came out shortly around that time-ish. Surprisingly, it doesn't work too well on straps. It's not as versatile.
Okay.
So I got that. Then I quickly, I can't remember if I sold it or traded it for something else. So I stayed within the realm of like watches that people knew, like most people knew about, that most people were looking to get straps for maybe, just to help to market the brand.
I'm curious because at least for like my journey, I would have gone through stuff like the Nautilus, the Royal Oak. I think I had a Pepsi once upon a time. Stuff that. Well, when you say hype watches, I would say like these sort of were like the peak of hype watches in a way, like the most hype, like the stainless steel sports. But I don't believe like you've ever gone through that sort of phase. Am I correct?
Yeah, and I never got into the sports watch side. I only got my first Rolex like last year.
You have a Rolex?
Yeah, I do.
Wow. I don't know. Okay,
I got
amazing.
A sub. Authenticated a sub. So this is where the strap part comes in.
Right.
Because if I make leather straps and I have limited budget for watches, I'm not going to buy a Nautilus which just...
You can't make a strap for
it, right?
Well, technically you can.
For some models, but I wouldn't buy a 5711.
To do it.
Yeah, just to put a strap on it. And I didn't want to make straps for that as well because it's a bit complicated. So I stuck with watches that work well on straps, and generally they were dressier watches. So that's where it started. Of course, things along the way evolved, and I got sucked into the independent side. It was a bit. I think it was also driven by like the whole Instagram mania at the time. I think one of the first, like I don't know if you call it independent, but one of the first micro independent brands was like Ming that I got into.
Sure.
I also wanted to make curved straps. So I remember when I first started making straps, a gold standard for me, or like something that I really wanted to achieve, was to make integrated leather straps.
Oh, like it flushes perfectly, basically.
Yeah, flush fit with the watch. And at the time, I was like, can we make that for Speedmaster? Can we make it for Grand Seiko? There was one brand doing it for Grand Seiko. I don't think they still make it. But yeah, to me, like, as a young brand, how do I put myself out there? So that's what I wanted to try. So when Ming's came out and I saw like curved straps, I was like, oh, okay, that seems much simpler than trying to make an integrated strap. So I was really into Ming, and I think the social media hype for them was quite strong.
Interesting. Then I think nowadays, of course, that I guess the spirit of customizing things for watches also spreads to some independent pieces. I think you've done quite a few MB&F, like HMs, which I imagine the straps for those is not easy. I guess you do the Mad One, which I assume is comparatively easier, things like that. So I guess just to finally move on to the independent journey, I think even when I met you, which was, like 2 years ago, at the time, I believe you had the Chrono Blue, and then maybe I think the Groenfeld was also already something that you had at the time. Yeah, I remember that being super early. But how exactly did you get into independence then?
So I think it went through that. So it started with Ming's, I guess, where I got into micro and independence, and then for the Chrono Blue, this was like, I got it after it had already started to, the prices had gone up.
Okay.
But
Like sub 100K?
sub 100K still. So it wasn't like the peak of it. So I got it somewhere in the middle. Someone was selling it. I was like, I really like how it wears. Like wearability to me is always a big one.
So thin.
Yeah, and like Journes are just the most wearable independents, I think. I think one of the most wearables independents. And the dial is same thing. So same themes, right?
Yes.
Wearability, dial. So I was really drawn to that. Someone was selling it, and I was like, of course, there's the element of, do you think you'll go higher? Can I purchase this and try it out and see if I like it? If I don't, maybe I could sell it for a higher price later on. There's a little bit of that. And also, like making curved straps, if I made it, if I could make it for the Ming, I can make it for the Journes, and that association with the brand is part of that consideration as well. So one piece came out on the market. I managed to talk to the guy. We struck a deal, and that's my first foray into independence.
Oh, wow. Okay. That was like the first major...
Yeah, so I really jumped in quite deep, I guess. I saw... price point wise is quite high for an independent. There are definitely other pieces.
Also at the time, though, I don't think like independents would have been that like too well known. So definitely. But I think it's like a nice piece to jump into.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at the movement of independent watch generally compared to a watch from the mainstream brands at the same price point, it's night and day.
Unless it's Journe, then it's
correct. Journe is well decorated, but the quality of the finishing may not be at that level. But I mean, I saw a Principia. We were just chatting about this earlier. On a friend's Principia, I saw it, and I turned it over. I was like, what am I looking at? And that was my start of appreciating movements more so than like other design elements, I guess. Well, wearability is still one. Interest in dials and all that is definitely still there. But I think movement, finishing, movement architecture, I think the independence is really what sparked that for me.
No, fair enough. Then earlier, of course, you mentioned like one of the big things about independence is like movement finishing. So I guess I'm not sure if we covered it, but for you, like how important is the movement finishing nowadays when you like consider a watch?
When I look at the watch, I think that's one of the first thing that jumps out at you as well. The Pascal Coyon here, you can see the black polish, for example. I was in Dubai recently, I had a chance to see the Simon Brett. It's like you turn over and it's like, wow, it just strikes you immediately. So I would say it's quite important. But at the same time, it's not like I'm taking a loop every day.
Yeah.
I'm not like inspecting the inner angles and
Yeah.
to me it's more like the knowledge that this is one of the better finished movements rather than like actually looking at the finest of details every single day. And I look at guys like Horomariobro, his account and how he
Well, that's super detailed.
yeah, like how he compares. So to me, when I look at the pictures there and see that it's good, then like okay, to me that brand is like good, right?
Yeah, that's enough for you.
Yeah, that's enough for me.
You're not gonna take out your own like loop and like inspect it yourself again.
Yeah, correct. I won't like inspect. I will look at my own, but it's not for inspection. It's more for
Right.
like just to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it's important to the extent that like I want to know that it's well finished, but I'm not gonna go into it and every day look at it and see like, okay, how good is it? How good is it?
Okay. Then, of course, speaking of Horomariobro, I think one of the 4 watches that you brought today
Yeah.
is his collaboration with Armin Strom, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just talk a bit through that watch?
Yeah, so this is a pure resonance ultimate sapphire. I think that's what they call it. So Armin Strom is the brand. Horomariobro, for those who don't know, is his Instagram. That's the name of the Instagram account. The guy who runs it, he is big into independence, and he really likes to look at watches up close, like really, really up
Yeah.
close.
Some argue too close.
Some will argue too close. Some of the brands are a little worried sometimes.
Yeah, German one isn't.
So this, I met Horomariobro in Singapore. We've chatted before in the past, but he told me about this collab, and it was special to me because it's one of the first few instances where I know a brand has collaborated with an individual collector to launch an edition of 10. It's not like one piece unique, right? It's 10 pieces.
Yep.
And they've made a lot of changes to the watch that is not just cosmetic. It's not like, oh, I'll just put a different color on, or I'll put a slightly different finishing on.
Sure.
They've removed the seconds dial, for example.
Oh, I didn't realize.
They took that away to have it more symmetrical.
Okay.
They took away the lip that's on the normal pure resonance. Like I've liked Armin Strom, but I could never get around the lip. So the fact that they removed it entirely for the collab shows me how much they're willing to do things for collectors. So yeah, when he told me about this collab, I was like, okay, I think this is finally my chance to get into Armin Strom, because for one, the size has always been a little bit bigger for me, especially with the big lip. But now that they've removed it, and knowing that the finishing is, if it passes his standards, and he's willing to do a collab with them, or at least they are doing a collab together, then yeah, and this is a resonance, so I've never owned a resonance. I've always wanted to have one.
Yeah.
So that makes it extra special as well.
Then I think there are people out there who might have heard of the name Armin Strom, but don't really know, whether it lives up to like the price you're paying. What is your opinion on that? Having owned one for a bit.
Yeah, this one, I think the price point is like 70 to 80 US, if I'm not
Okay.
wrong. Yeah, around that range, maybe slightly less.
And the material is
This one is steel.
okay.
Yeah. I think that, when you compare it to the mainstream brands, definitely I think there's no comparison, right? Like at that price point, you can't get something that's so complicated, something that's finished to this level.
Yeah, I mean the equivalent would be like a calendar sort of watch from like a mainstream brand, or like a chronograph,
Yeah.
something like that.
But we know how the finishing is.
Sure.
From like a Cartier, you get a skeleton watch. Time
I
only,
mean that's
right?
like the extreme example in a way.
That's the extreme example. You get it for different reasons, but I think if you're into movement, finishing, complication, like this is one of the few that you can get at this price point. To get a resonance, I don't think there's that many brands doing resonance that you can just buy at retail these days. I mean, that's John, but yeah, it's quite impossible to get it at retail. Secondary market prices are like 200 and above. So this is one of the few resonance that you can get.
Then on paper, this watch is actually quite big and somewhat thick. How does it wear on the wrist for you?
Quite okay, actually. I've started to I think this is one of those cases where, yes, I would prefer if it's a smaller, thinner version, and I think that would really help Armin Strom to reach to a much wider crowd. But because of how unique it is, how it looks, the finishing, I'm willing to overlook like that it's slightly bigger. And I mean, I think it's still an okay size. It's not like, okay, they have a repeater. That one is extremely big. I would not wear that, right? But this one, to me, I can still pull it off. Yeah, I think it looks quite okay. Do you think it looks okay?
No, I actually do think it looks quite okay. Of course, with your signature, what do you call it? The strap color?
Grey
The
Storm.
Grey Storm.
Yeah, Grey Storm
I
Medicated.
think it's like one of my favorite colors for.
It's a
that
safe
you do.
choice.
Yes,
I need to
for
find
like
a-
every watch, basically.
But I need to find a louder strap for this one.
I mean, it looks very neutral, so I guess anything will work.
Yeah,
But I guess onto a louder watch than the LM101, which I think it is one that you've had quite a bit of experience with. As far as like your journey with independence goes, yeah, a mutual friend had one that I think you had experience with. Yeah, and I think we've talked about MB&F generally for quite a while, and you've been considering, I think, was it like a tourbillon or like, anyways, there were various models at the time which were like reasonably priced, but yeah, how did you end up with this one in particular?
I think MB&F is one of those brands that's like, if you're into independence, you probably would think you would know about them.
Yeah.
You might want to get one at some point if it fits your wrist. I remember watching some YouTube videos of like some of their crazy collections, and it's so amazing how a brand can think of so many different concepts and bring it to life. And yeah, so the first experience I have is with the Steel 101 that they released in 22, 21? 21, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the way that they brought the movement up onto the dial and placed it front and center, the escapement, makes it super unique and it's like visually striking, right? I mean, there's a theme between these two. You can see part of the movement. It's really coming to life in front of your eyes when you wear it on the wrist. With the LM, so I think with MB&F, I've looked at the HMs, but I could never wear one. We spoke about this. And the LM category, I think anything other than the 101 is too big for my wrist. It's like 44 mm. Maybe at some point I'll get one because it's like, it's so special. But for now, I think the LM 101 is what's like more reasonably sized.
So you would never get like an Evo?
I wouldn't say never. Like, but Perpetual Evo, I would get it for the movement, and I would tolerate the size in a sense. Right?
Yeah,
like,
it is too big though.
Yeah, it's a big. It's a pity because I really like the Perpetual Evo. I like the sequential. That's what they call it. Yeah. But yeah, I think size wise, I just can't pull it off. I like the, what is that? The dome, Thunder Dome.
Yep.
That one is like, wow, the dial is crazy, and then you have that flying tourbillon in the middle. Triple X is tourbillon. So yeah, so when I saw the LM101, the steel one, I really liked it, but of course the waiting times is quite crazy.
From retail?
Yeah, from retail at least. I like that it doesn't have the legacy machine
Oh, interesting.
hand engraved part.
Some people like really love that.
Yeah,
Not
to
me
I-
personally, but yeah.
I don't like it. So there's a few generations where they had it, that inscription that's floating around the secondary market. I considered one at one point, but I just couldn't get past the inscription. So the later generations, I really liked it, but waiting time is too long. This one came on the market a while back, earlier this year, for a decent price, I guess. And I don't really see a rose gold LM101.
Very rare to see them.
Yeah, and with this dial finish, this dial texture.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was like,
Personally,
okay.
for me, it's one of the nicest LM101s. I mean, I've seen a friend's one before as well, and that in like natural light, for example, it is something special, and it's sort of like a frosted finish to the dial.
Yes.
But one thing I wanted to ask you about, which I think some people, they look at the brand and the legacy machines, and they might feel uncertain about, is the dome. In your experience, I know you're not a huge fan of like thick watches. In a way, this is like thickness but different. But what is your feeling on like having such a pronounced like dome to a watch?
Honestly, when you wear it on the wrist, you don't see the dome. Like, that's the magic. I don't know how they do it. I think it's the double anti-reflective coating.
Yeah, both sides.
But yeah, you don't really, like, it's almost like you can touch the balance wheel. So you don't notice it when you're wearing it. Of course, if you're like the type that's a bit more careless, you knock your wrist against stuff, then definitely with this height is gonna cause some problems. But I think generally, if you're careful, this is not really an issue. I don't think about the dome at all when I'm wearing it. There are some models that's like even more pronounced. I can't say for sure whether those are fine. But yeah, I think for the LM1 ones, they are way more than okay. And yeah, it's that anti-reflective coating thing is like magic. It looks so good in person. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I think they did very right, and maybe why I'm not a huge fan of f.p.journe dials. Yeah, just lack of air coating. But another watch that is very good when it comes to air coating is Bethune. I'm wearing one today on your CTS strap as well, but that is one where I've seen a lot of photos online, but today seeing it in person for the first time, yeah, that's one very special dial. Yeah, what is this watch?
This is the DB28XS Starry Seas. So the 39, the smallest DB 28 there is.
Yes.
They released this earlier this year. It's 39 mm. I think most DB28s are like 43 mm. Of course, the DB28 has that articulating lux, which makes it special. So you can actually, it fits your wrist very, very nicely.
Yeah.
It basically, it's like custom fitted to your wrist almost. The reason why I got this was because the dial is just, when I saw pictures and photos online, it felt to me like, these are all just press statements. It's like people talk about like, random guilloche or whatnot.
I didn't even realize that's how they market it.
Yeah.
Is it even a titanium dial for this?
Yes, it's a heated blue titanium,
okay.
but the pattern is supposedly random. So the reason why it's called Starry Seas is because this really looks like a starry sea. Like it's hard to see from the photos, but when you move the watch around, in some angles
the way
it's just
reflects.
it's like black, and then suddenly when it reflects the light, it's like blue, and then sometimes it's like purple.
Yeah.
So I've always been a sucker for good dials, and this one, when I saw it in person, I was like, okay, I think this is the one to get. And of course, it's super wearable. Like the 28 series has always been very thin, the XP even more so. But this one is not just thin, but it's small. Good dial. Movement architecture is nice. Movement finishing is like, it's alright.
It's so hard to judge with this one for me because, the polishing and stuff is on point, but you don't have like a Voutilainen, for example, like super fine anglage, that sort of thing, or I don't think many of them have like stripes, for example. So it's very hard to like evaluate on the same plane.
Yeah.
But as far as like I've macroed, at least like I don't find imperfections with them.
Yeah.
Which,
Correct.
yeah, I guess that's all I can give.
Correct. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like it's not something that wows you. Like
It's not the focus anyway.
It's not the focus. Correct. I think for this one is really, to me, it's like I get it for the dial. I get it for the case architecture. This articulating lux feature. I think that it's wearable, but it has a very distinct design. Like Bethune as an entire brand, I think it's a very distinctive design.
So I think, like with MB&F, you'd probably own a LM, but not an HM. For Bethune, I know you also have another DB28.
Yeah.
But would you ever own a DB25?
I've considered the smaller one. So there's what's the one with that all blue dial? 40 mm.
Yeah, one just came up on auction. I forgot what it's called though.
Yeah.
The fully blue titanium.
So there's like 44, 42. I think those are the most common one. I recently found out there's a 40 mm as well. So I think if I I'll probably get the 40 mm one, because I think for me 42 and 44 are a bit too big. Yeah. I would say never, but probably not the larger ones. Like what are those? I'll get flamed for this. What's the DV model that is? Okay, the most recent one they released, the digital.
Oh, right.
Like to me, that one is a bit too big, and the case design is not that nice. Like I will get this because of the case design, but that one is just.
I just don't understand that watch, frankly. But yeah,
the way they display the time order is nice, but I think the overall wearing of it is not. I've seen it. I saw it in person. I don't think it was
the
that great.
shape of it for me is kind of awkward. But anyways, I guess that aside, one final watch that you brought today, which I actually have almost no knowledge about, and I might even pronounce wrong, is Pascal Coyon. Yeah. Anyways, can you just talk through the watch?
Yeah. Pascal Coyon is an independent maker in France. This I don't even think he makes. I don't even know if he makes 20 watches a year or whatnot. This is like the Series 2, which has improved movement. The reason why I got this watch is because this movement, this is the only watch where I've seen where the movement takes up the entire case. Like you've never seen.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, there's nothing like this, right? If you compare it to the LM101, you still have like places to put like the engravings and all that.
But I mean, most watches, I'll probably put a video up, but yeah, like VCs, for example, are criminal for having like huge borders around the movement,
Yes.
or stuff like that.
Yes. This one is where, like, I think this is a 39-ish, and it has the biggest movement you'll ever see on a 39.
There's almost also no bezel to it.
Yeah, there's minimal bezel. It's just all dial. This blue, like, lacquer dial, and there's quite a lot of depth to it. It's not quite like the Chrono Blue, but it's fairly close, I would say.
Almost like an overseas-esque kind of, like the old one.
Correct. That's right.
Not the new sunbursty one.
Not the new sunbursty one.
Yeah.
And the hands are like super crazy. It's curved and the point is extremely sharp. So it's one of those things that, of course, I didn't even talk about the movement finishing. I mean, the movement finishing is quite crazy, and it's one of those where I have to thank Horomariobro once again for showing me how it compares to other independent watches at different price point.
What is the price point of this though, roughly?
So the first series was extremely low priced. I think it's like under
similar
10.
quality?
Similar-ish. So Horomariobro's one is the first series, I think. And when you look at the finishing on that, compared to a lot of the other big ones, it's quite crazy. But that one, I think, is probably underpriced for what it is. This one, its retail, I think, is about the $50 US range.
Okay, not too bad. I think for what you're getting, it's very impressive.
Yeah, yes, it is a time only, but the level of finishing is really quite crazy.
Yes.
The polish, the anglage, the Coste d'Genève, I think the overall look of it is just very striking.
Yeah,
Like
you described it well there, where, I mean, when you first arrive and I looked at it, it's like something where you distinctly feel like, oh wow, this is special. Whereas like other watches, sometimes you kind of need to like look very closely or have someone explain it.
Yeah, correct.
Then,
Yeah, I mean, I just like the mirror polishing. I think that's the most obvious one, when it plays with the light and you just get some parts is black, some parts is like reflecting the light. And then like the band is humongous on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, insane watch. Then I think at this point, you've also photographed like the only watches when they were in Singapore back in 21, I think now. And you've probably seen like all sorts of like super high-end watches, and your own collection is superb as well. So I always like to ask people a sort of hypothetical question, which is, let's say someone gave you infinite money to create a 3-watch collection. You can't sell any of the watches. You can't and you also can't create any sort of piece unique that doesn't exist. So like a complication that just doesn't exist right now. What are the 3 watches off the top of your head that you would put into that collection?
First one is f.p.journe Resonance 38mm brass movement. I think that's probably one of my grails. I think yes, I talked about the Armin Strom, but I think that the f.p.journe, the size of it is 38mm, super slim. Movement finishing is I haven't seen that one super up close yet, but I mean I think it's typical of Journe's. But the dial layout is very symmetrical. It's a very beautiful watch.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my top 3. Second one, I would say, probably, I think one of the DB28 kind of blue, maybe the Tourbillon. I think, yes, I have this one, but I think DBs are known for that all blue case.
Or the all heated titanium.
All heated titanium case, yeah, sorry. I think that's a very striking look. When I first saw it 2 years ago from a mutual friend, I didn't really think much of it. I was like, what the hell is this?
I remember he lent it to me for a while, and I remember I was just in my room looking at it, and I thought to myself wow, I'll never like wear this watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't even understand like what's going
Yeah,
on.
exactly. I was like, why would you want to wear a watch that's all blue? It's like, what kind of color
And it's
is
a
this?
very strong, like, distinct blue. It's not like a mild, like a mild blue either. So yeah,
Yeah, so I saw that. But then these days, when I see someone posting on Instagram, I'm like, oh, shit, I really wish I have a blue Debutune, a blue case Debutune. Just because it's something that they are known for, and it's so striking. Like you have the articulating lux, then you have a blue case, and yeah, it's like that's just quite crazy.
I think kind of blue for me is the ultimate Bethune in the sense that like it embodies the brand.
Yes,
perfectly.
correct.
Like the heated titanium, the lugs. For me, like DB28 is more signature than the 25s. Just
Yeah, and
Fair enough.
I think same for the genre, right? Like, yes, they have the tourbillons. I think the earlier versions, tourbillon is one of the big part of John's earlier collections, but other people do tourbillons as well. I think the resonance is something that is...
Actually, many people did tourbillons before. If you want to look at like JLC or like Breguet or whatever, they've been doing this for like ages.
Yep.
Whereas resonance, I'm not sure the history, but like I think Journe is much more signature when it comes to that.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and it's... I think it's what, like you say, you know, when you collect one watch from a brand, I think you really want to get the watch that is signature of them.
Fair
And the
enough.
brass movement from Jean, I think that's what makes it special. Of course, there are some not so good things about brass, but if you want to collect the watch for the brand, I think that's what Jean's one is. Third one, I want to say an MB&F, but then again,
Interesting.
but-
Not what I would have expected.
yeah, no, but like the higher complication MB&Fs that I really want, the perpetual and the sequential, those I can't really wear that well. So I wouldn't put an MB&F as much as it pains me not to put an MB&F on an independent watch list. But I would say it's a Coyon.
Of course. Yeah.
Was that what you were expecting?
No, when you said MB&F, I was so confused because it didn't seem like an answer that you'd give.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I was gonna guess is something more dressy, like a RRCC or like a Dufour S, like that sort of like super fine, like time only dress watch. So I was thinking towards that, but of course, yeah, Coyon makes sense since I know it's something that you've been. Well, it was like love at first sight in a way when you saw the only watch.
Yeah, I think to me, why... I mean, no, so let's talk about the other things you mentioned, the other candidates. Dufours and Acrivias and RRCCs, they've always... To me, it's in my mind, it's just watches that exist, but I know I'll never get one. Like,
Sure.
for whatever reason, it's not something that I'll own. Like, I mean, of course, price point is just way too high. So I don't really consider them as...
Okay, fair enough.
I know you said like price, no, not really a thing, but I if I think about it, like I don't really think about Dufours and RCCs that much, just because it's like it's just out there, you know.
No, I completely understand. Like if someone asked me theoretically, like infinite money, like what car I would buy,
Yeah.
like I wouldn't choose a Bugatti, not because it's like an amazing, or it's not an amazing car, but because I just don't think about it.
Yeah, I just don't think about it.
it.
I just look at the watch. I was like, okay, cool, but I know that I'll never pick one up.
Yeah, like it exists, but I'll probably never own one. So
correct.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, not that I'll pick a genre resonance up immediately, you know, but it's possible. Like
Yes.
I can see that happening. If I consolidate a few pieces, or like, you know, if I happen to decide to save up for something. But yeah, with those, I think it's just so far out there. For me, the Dufour is like, yes, the finishing is good, but is it like $1 million good? I don't think so, and
It's
I wouldn't.
okay. It won't be $1 million for long, I assume. But yeah.
Yeah, so back to my third choice is the Coyon Anywhere. I really like it because I think it's one of those. So the brand Coyon, they only have two models, right? They have the Everywhere and the Anywhere. Everywhere it belongs in that tier of like extremely high price watches that I'll probably never consider. But the Anywhere is something that I can actually see myself wearing. It's very wearable. I think it's a sub 40mm case. But the complication is super cool. It's like it shows you the sunrise and sunset timing, depending on the location you're in. Like you can set it to one location and it shows you that timing throughout the year. So I don't know what you call it, complication. But the way they design it in the dial, they integrate it, is very, very nice.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the things that people don't speak about enough. Just how you integrate things, how you design it. And I think that is one of the strongest point of the crayons.
It's like very seamless and poetic in a way, like very artistic. So
Yeah.
yeah. And also just a very good package in terms of size, I believe.
Size, dial, complication, finishing.
What's your thoughts on the movement though? I think it's quite unique as far as finishing goes.
Yeah, the finishing is really good. Like I saw it recently in Dubai again. It's like when you turn it over, the first thing that strikes you is how the coats de Genève are just like sparkling. They're really sparkling, like these different colors, rainbows, like green, blue, and all that.
Oh wow.
So I feel like I didn't notice that the first few times I saw the crayon. So I'm not sure if it's something they changed it or what. But it just is really striking. The anglage and all that is great. I'm not a huge fan of like the shape of the anglage. It's meant to mimic the coastline of some location, but to me it just feels a little bit random. Like it's not flowy or it's not nice. I think sometimes you have to paint a story a story before people buy into a certain messaging.
Yeah, fair enough.
And maybe that story is not strong enough in their marketing or whatnot. So to me, it's just I don't see it as part of the brand heritage. I see it more as just a random jagged edge movement plate, right? But the finishing is super crazy. I think how they've kept such a complication to such a simple mechanism is quite incredible as well.
If you enjoyed this video, check out my other watch reviews and video podcast series. Thank you for watching.